I think I just interrupted you. You were at this point where there's something you talked about Ekuru, Ekot, and you were thinking about the next steps. Okay.
Yeah. So, anyway, let me just sum it up. We will never relent, and we are looking at a political class that has formed their ideologies to their solution. The ultimate solution is coming together, forming coalitions to protect themselves. And one thing we need not to lose is our determination. Every time we come together and fight for a purpose, something we are already making a step towards. So me, I'm very happy that even Eric Omondi picked up the nimesahau hiyo nini ya ku reduce the cost of governance, and that is another thing we need to focus on is the quality of leadership that we send. The people we choose to represent us are very important. Let us focus on scrutinizing them very, very intensively. And then number 2, always be up. Ukipata shida iko, ambia mtu, let somebody know something is happening to you. And when you hear something is happening to somebody, even if you're one person and you say it, eventually that track will come. So I want to tell us, let us reject poor governance. Let us reject mismanagement of public resources. Let us reject stealing of our hard-earned tax money. Let us reject unjust policies. Let us reject violation of human and constitutional rights. And let's keep at it. Let us reject any form of oppression on our health, on our education, on our transport, on our food security, on our peace as Kenyans. Our mental health is very important. Anytime a leader comes to you and they want to compromise your integrity, make sure you make it known. We need to lose the fear. I know most of us could be scared, maybe nitakufa, maybe nitafanya nini, but at some point we have to cross a certain bridge, and let us do it together. So to close, there is this bill called Punguza Mizigo Bill ya Ekuru Ekot. I think if we come together and we amend it, we tweak a bit what needs to be adjusted for what we're experiencing now and what we think can be tackled in the future, I think that would be a good thing. People who need a copy of that bill, I have it, and on Tuesday from 6 to about 8, we also tackle it. I do not have
Q&A session, and a very, very, we want to have an interactive session. So I'm going to give a lady the mic, Shayla, and then we go to Wanda. 3 minutes each, please.
Hello, hi, Moj. Thank you so much. My name is Shayla Nyangara Nyanchara. I'm a passionate Kenyan, and I'm also an entrepreneur. So I thank God that Kenyans, we are now woke. We are no longer victims of political PR. And one thing that I have come to learn progressively is we are already civically educated as a people. We know what our rights are. We know what we need to do when the systems are failing. What we are now learning, I think we're in the next step. I stand to be corrected. We're in the step of learning political and discerning political behavior, political ideologies, and that is where we are at. And the moment, and Kenyans, let us not lose hope. This is a journey that we are going on, and we will break through. I think we have broken through some very, very ceilings that we did not even think of. So let us continue like this. First of all, I usually like to begin with encouragement, because I usually do. I decided to do public participation because after we did the finance bill and we all work as Kenyans, and we realized, what policy making is at the core of our of determining what the quality of our lives will be. This is what determines what kind of food you can eat as an individual, as a family, whoever you are. This is what determines the kind of healthcare service, the quality of healthcare service you get. policy and the center of politics is what determines what kind of education you will get, you and your descendants, if you decide to have a family, your relatives. It will determine where you study, where you travel. It will determine your exposure, and exposure is what ultimately builds an economy. And if the economy is good, even you as a person, you will be good. So I think I decided to do my public participation, and I usually hold Tuesday spaces, and it's called the Tuesday update. And during that conversation, the Tuesday update, where we just decide to come as Kenyans and bring our ideas together, our heads together. What are the challenges and what are the solutions that we can face? Because every single day you find there's a challenge. I know people say we complain a lot, but the complaining comes from the realization of something, a new challenge every single day. So in the course of this, I met Dr. Ekuru Aukot during the spaces. Alikuja kwa space akatupatia one of the solutions of the things that he was doing, and that was the Punguza Mizigo bill. I don't want to dive into it. But why I'm bringing this up is because as I was enlightening people about how we can reduce the cost of governance in our country, a lady was asking me, how then do we do it? And I'm like, we have the strength of the Constitution. And they're like, but people are disregarding the law left, right, and center, beginning from Ruto himself down even to a simple chief. Everyone is just disregarding the law. No one is following anything. And the moment our law is bended and broken, that means the foundation of our democracy is already shaken, and we will fight and keep fighting, and we cannot go anywhere. And I was like, and I told her, no, these are people who have invested their resources to gain political power, and they will not give it up easily. They've invested in this, and they have gotten our trust, and we have given them these positions of representation, but then they decide to misuse them, and they will not get out there. So what do we need to do? We need to keep pushing. If you try one thing, I was one of the people who were advocating for the road maintenance levy fund. And when people went for public participation, and the then Minister of Transport, Mr. Murkomen, alisemati, hatutapandisha hiyo levy fund, we will find a way to cushion Kenyans before we increase. But then the president the following week, Ruto akasema tu tutapandisha. And you now wonder, because ultimately the cost of this.
Sheila, would you try to wind up, please? We're trying to get 3 minutes each, and Abdullahi, I will try to drop those who have spoken so that the others can get a chance. So if I drop you after you've spoken, there's no offense. They're just trying to create some space for others. Back to you, Sheila, as you wind up, and then
Thank you so much. So, and where was I?
Paul, I think I just interrupted you. You were at this point where there's something you talked about, Ekuru Aukot, and you were thinking about the next steps. Okay.
Yeah. So, anyway, let me just sum it up. We will never relent, and we are looking at a political class that has formed their ideologies to their solution. The ultimate solution is coming together, forming coalitions to protect themselves. And one thing we need not to lose is our determination. Every time we come together and fight for a purpose, something we are already making a step towards. So me, I'm very happy that even Eric Omondi picked up the nimesahau hiyo nini ya ku reduce the cost of governance, and that is another thing we need to focus on is the quality of leadership that we send. The people we choose to represent us are very important. Let us focus on scrutinizing them very, very intensively. And then number 2, always be up. Ukipata shida iko, ambia mtu, let somebody know something is happening to you. And when you hear something is happening to somebody, even if you're one person and you say it, eventually that track will come. So I want to tell us, let us reject poor governance. Let us reject mismanagement of public resources. Let us reject stealing of our hard-earned tax money. Let us reject unjust policies. Let us reject violation of human and constitutional rights. And let's keep at it. Let us reject subject any form of oppression on our health, on our education, on our transport, on our food security, on our peace as Kenyans. Our mental health is very important. Anytime a leader comes to you and they want to compromise your integrity, make sure you make it known. We need to lose the fear. I know most of us could be scared, maybe nitakufa, maybe nitafanya nini, but at some point we have to cross a certain bridge, and let us do it together. So to close, there is this bill called Punguza Mizigo Bill ya Ekurokot. I think if we come together and we amend it, we tweak a bit what needs to be adjusted for what we're experiencing now and what we think can be tackled in the future, I think that would be a good thing. People who need a copy of that bill, I have it, and on Tuesday from 6 to about 8, we also tackle it. I do not have the intellect to dissect the Constitution, but we just give our opinions on it. And sometimes Ekurokot comes to the space, and I would like to invite also Dr. Miguna, because of your insight and knowledge of the Constitution as a legal person. I also welcome every other Kenyan. We need each other. So thank you so much for this space. Na tuendele hivyo. Hawa watu wasitubebe ujinga. Tumechoka. Asanteni sana.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Let's go to Wanda and then Afro, and Afro will then usher in Dr. Yeah.
Thank you so much, I suggested the person. I forget Dr. Miguna and every person on board. From where I sit, I feel like we keep getting all this wrong. Because I'm not in either way looking at the Punguza Mizigo or any kind of initiative that is being brought on board as a problem or not okay. But I feel like we keep getting this wrong. When you look at Kenya,
Can somebody hear Wanda well? I think he's not...
Just the general elections. We were having things like... you can hear me?
The past seconds not, but now yes. Now yes, try again.
Okay, thank you. As I was saying, I feel like we keep getting this all wrong. That in as much as politics is a major problem that is affecting us, but it always starts and ends with the presidential elections. That we keep giving presidential elections a lot of time, powers, resources, and everything to the extent that we end up with the office that is not addressing the challenges and problems of our people, but instead we end up getting a person, we end up getting an office that in one way or the other is in a position to put into their pocket the legislature. At some point, we'll end up with the judiciary not working well, and all this. It's all in the presidential election that we end up forgetting that as a country we have other regions that might not be populated, but probably they have a say, or probably they have an input into the problems that we are having. From the tyranny of numbers, Kupanda Mlima, and today we are now talking of Kuguza Mlima, it tells you that even if we end up with 1 or 2, 3 programs brought on board to Punguza the Mzigo that we are having, if we don't address the presidential elections and how we conduct our elections, we'll still end up with some individuals into these positions that will not address the challenges that we are having. If I'm told no one of these people is looking at the CDF, and imagine that when Kibaki came into power, he only brought in CDF to address the inequalities that were brought in by the differences between those in opposition and those in government, then it tells you that we are still not addressing the challenges that we are facing. The other thing that I would like to talk of that I feel like it's probably not going the right direction is how we are managing the Gen Zs and the millennials. We are too quick to fund any Gen Zs or the millennials that are perceived to be speaking the language of the people. Instead of looking at these individuals, guide them, nurture them before finding a clear structure, we end up empowering these Gen Zs and the millennials too early, too soon, such that those in power, those in the presidential election power kind of mindset, easily points out those few 1, 2, 3 individuals that we are funding, put them in the pocket, then we go back to the square zero. Instead of funding these young, promising Gen Zs and the millennials that probably are perceived or seen as persons with the potentials to offer alternative leadership in the future, start coming up with the clear structures. Put them in proper structures before showing them, before putting money into their hands. So allow me to yield on this point that the main problem that we are facing as a country is how we conduct presidential elections. If we don't address how we conduct presidential elections, we'll end up with the saints in the same positions that will turn into vampires, then eaters. Allow me to yield on that much.
Thank you so much, Mwalimu Wanda, for your very good submissions there. Of course, you gave us some food for the thought, and that's a very welcome, submission. Over to you, Afro, as you then welcome Dr.
Thank you so much. Guys, I hope we are sharing the space on your timeline. Revolutionary ideas must be passed on like candles. You have to inject in your social circle of influence, whether it's your family, whether it's your work colleagues, even as a simple tweet on your space. You're keeping these revolutionary ideas going. Right now, we're at a stage where we're bridging the gap between generations, between Gen Zs, millennials, Gen Xs, boomers. This is where there are people who have fought in this struggle for the longest, and we are now standing on their shoulders, and we are joining hands, and we're cuffing links, and we're saying that we have to dispose this corrupt regime. So without further much ado, allow me to welcome Daktari Miguna on the space to give us his thoughts on the revolution. Karibu Daktari, the microphone is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Maj and Afrocentric, for the illuminating introduction. I've been listening, and I want to continue listening before I contribute to the discussion. I've just asked Maj to also include, I've seen Dr. Barak Muluka listening.
Yeah, let me add them,
I believe Wakili Ndegwa was there. So there are a few other people, plus, of course, our friend Mwangi, CPA, who has done quite a bit of research on how corruption and looting is happening at the counties. So I will be back, but let's have a vibrant discussion.
Great, Dr. Tony, you've left. I just added you to the mic. Kindly pick it. As I try to add other guests, let me see if that is going to work now. I think you sent the request again. As I add them on, let's have Farah speak.
Thank you. Maj, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a very different opinion from... I don't blame the political class, because for them, it was an opportunity that they saw and wanted to execute. And according to them, they're doing it very well. My problem is with us, the citizenry, the people. Sisi kama wananchi. For a period of time, a lot of us have not cared about what happens with our motherland. We have not...
Maj, is there a problem? I can't seem to hear anybody.
I can hear the current speaker.
Yeah, Farah, I can hear Farah too.
Yeah. Okay. I can hear him. Let's give him one more chance, then we see what happens. And after him, we have Tony on board. Farah, kindly continue.
Thank you,
minutes,
Maj.
please. Yes.
No problem. I was saying for a period of time we haven't cared enough about what happens with the future of our country, because if you look at the bills that have been passed for a period of time since Uhuru's time to this current regime, it's a continuous attack on our agricultural sector and our sovereignty, because ni uenda wazimu inaendelea, honestly, for lack of better words. And if you look at, we need to start having the mentality that, and understanding that it is our responsibility to develop our motherland. Adani is not responsibility Adani or anybody else coming from the outside. I'll give you a very simple example where we can make this happen and ensure that everybody believes in ourselves, because what Adani is offering, for instance, for the JKIA and all the other airports, is 30% of $2 billion, which is about 600. If you ukilete into Kenyan shillings, it's about 78 billion Kenyan shillings. Divided amongst the populace, it's 1,560 shillings per person. But that's impossible. Why don't we form a consortium, buy shares into it, and become Adani? What is stopping us from building our motherlands? The West, America was built by Americans and the immigrants who wanted to be Americans. 60 years ago, Dubai and all these lands were desolate deserts, but it was built by the Arabs and the money that they pulled from their grounds. You as a people, what's stopping you? Why do you always have to delegate your responsibility to other people? This is the same reason we have a lot of people having the Messiah mentality, whereby unaona mtu is just pointing out at problems, not coming up with solutions, but you go on the same boat because he's the only person speaking and you're not responsible enough to take up responsibility. That was one thing. The second thing, I would really like to talk to the people who are my age, the Gen Zs and the millennials. One of the main reasons why the protests failed was because we told the older generation and everybody else, kaeni nyumbani, we do not need you. That's a lie. We need each and everybody. Look at what happened in Egypt at the Tahrir Square. It is the Gen Z and the younger generation that were camping out, but the older generation provided them with everything else that they needed. They provided food, water, security, blankets, everything you needed. And that's the only way we are going to change this country. It's not about you. It's about what's better and what's best for this country. It's about a better tomorrow. And this is one plea I would like to make to the older generation, Kina Dr. Miguna, Kina Tony Gashoka, and all these other older people. We will make mistakes as the younger generation, but we need your wisdom and our energy to make this thing work. Otherwise, we will all keep on complaining online and discussing problems without ever coming up with solution or acting on those solutions. I don't think the election cycle or the political class is a problem. Shida ni wewe na mimi. We do not love this country enough. And the moment you realize that hii nchi ni mimi na wewe, there's a Somali saying that says, Dalka wa datka, dulka maha. The country is the people, not the land. So those are my few remarks. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Farah. If you don't mind, put that phrase on the comment section. We're going to learn some Somali here as we continue. Thanks. Tony Gashoka?
Maj,
yes.
I would like to also add a verse of the Quran before Tony comes on.
Go on.
You know, the older generations, the generations that came before us, dealt with tyrants who were much worse than the people we are dealing with. Moses was told, اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى. Go and face Pharaoh, for he has exceeded in transgression. And he said, I am scared, for he might exceed upon me or kill me. And God told him, لا تخافا إنني معكما أسمع وأرى. Do not be scared, for I am with you, all seeing and all hearing. And this was against people who are building the pyramids. We are dealing with people who cannot maintain roads. Look at the disparity. Thank you.
Thanks so much for the very strong ending of that statement. Yes. Over to you, Tony.
Yes, good evening to everybody, Maj and my comrade at arms, Dr. Miguna. Look, fellow Kenyans, we are at the most dangerous time we have ever been, I think, since the construction of the Kenyan Republic. I say the Kenyan Republic because the more dangerous times, comparable ones, were during the fight for our independence from the colonial powers in order to transform Kenya into a self-governing state. So dangerous is the situation because I am seeing a series of activities that can be summarized not just as dictatorship, but a methodical, systematic degrading of our multi-party democracy. I mean, we've already talked from the beginning since the disputed election that the first thing to discredit was the commission, electoral commission itself, that it was, said to be split. But soon after that election, it was buried. As we speak today, nobody in the political class, including the opposition or the government, is talking about the IBUC. We are in a situation where there is a conspiracy between the opposition and the government. William Ruto began to systematically buy the opposition MPs. But I think I see something which is even more worrisome. The opposition MPs are seeking William Ruto. It is no longer a one-way relationship. This is a two-way traffic. The greed of the political class, the excesses of the greed of the political class in Kenya is beyond historical comparisons. Yes, you go to elections, you elect MPs, they vote themselves the biggest salaries and the biggest benefits. When they leave office, they give themselves pensions and healthcare for life. They have voted within parliament that if you elect a party to government or a party to opposition, they are entitled to the political party's fund. Therefore, even after elections, the public continue to fund their political parties. Many of those political parties are individual enterprises, like in the case of ODM, like in the case of several other smaller parties. One would argue in Kenyan politics from the time of DP, from the time of, I think, Foda, Silly, and so forth, that so many of these parties were always individualized, so that even what you call the political parties fund becomes the piggy bag of the so-called owners of these parties, again funded by the public. And then all of a sudden, you've seen the other day, Parliament within 24 hours can come together in unison, government, opposition, and everything in between. And within 24 hours can pass a motion and a bill with 2/3 in their interest or in whatever the agenda they want to pass. Without where we are in Kenya today, we elected a government and an opposition that is non-existent. The Kenyan people, under the political parties political act of 2021, were given the position before elections to look at parties. Those parties went out and formed coalitions. In the case of the Kenya Kwanza, they formed coalitions of parties and offered their manifesto and offered their candidatures to the country. In the case of Azimio, they formed a constituent party. The law requires that both the two competitors deposit with the registrar of political parties the documents containing the ideology, manifesto, and the order in which they will govern themselves, so that in case of any disputes, the public would be able to know that there's been a violation of those agreements and that the courts will be participatory in the solving of those problems. So look at these Kenyans, why we are in real crisis. You are given William Ruto and his running mate, Gachagua. On the other hand, you are given Raila and Martha Karua. And today, none of whom you voted for is together. You are looking at a situation where William Ruto has undone the popular will of all the people and members of Kenya Kwanza who voted in a team as presented by Ruto to the public. You are looking at a situation where Raila Odinga has fallen out with the principals or the people who put together a coalition in Azimio, and they put themselves to the public. And the people who voted Azimio and the people who voted Kenya Kwanza have all been defrauded. They have been delegitimized. In other words, the mandate that these people are using to govern or to participate in opposition and whatever conspiracies they are building are illegitimate. They are null and void ab initio. They do not reflect the will of the people as voted in the general election of 2022. And therefore, what are you doing? You're dealing with an illegal, illegitimate government, illegal, illegitimate structure of opposition and government, illegal, illegitimate government of national unity. You're dealing with a government that does not obey court orders. You're dealing with a government which is beginning to infiltrate the judiciary. You are looking at a situation where they pay themselves allowances, where they pay themselves huge amounts in the political parties' bill to reward their parties so that small parties emerging from the public can never emerge because only those who claim they were voted by us are taking money on our basis and yet they don't reflect us. And they are showing you that they can take 2/3 of parliament and do whatever they want with it. So I want to raise this alarm to this nation at this time, at this moment, that let it be said that some of us began to say very early on that we must, first of all, say that the multi-party state, as described in Chapter 4 of the 2010 Constitution, that there will be a government and that there will be an opposition in order that Kenya is a multi-party state guaranteed by the Bill of Rights, has now no longer continued to exist and does not exist at all. And one of the reasons that I'm in court next Thursday on the 17th of October, leading a constitutional petition against the sale of Jomo Kenyatta Airport is because the government and the opposition and parliament and all the persons we have delegated our authority to are taking that authority to waste our society and our property and our assets without getting to the propriety of the case. How do you take an asset that belongs to the public, but is also a profitable asset, so that you take it at no reason whatsoever, give it to without any public participation, public scrutiny, and continue a plan and a system of raping the public? So you rape the public on elections. You rape them by paying yourselves, including giving yourselves pensions, taking from the political party's fund. Then you take their assets of Kenya and you say that you're privatizing them. And then you go to the streets and you order the army and deploy them. Then you take guns and bullets and shoot our children. And then you leave them to be buried and rot as dogs. And then you wake up every Sunday and go to church. And the man you used to go to church with, Gachagua'S, you impeach him in 24 hours. Like as though that was like killing a mosquito on a bed. If they can do that to Gachagua'S, what can they do to you? This is a state of an emergency, and I'm calling upon all Kenyans, particularly those who say that they are the Gen Z and whatever. This is a time for all hands on deck. I do not want to hear, I have no longer any appetite to hear, oh, this is our favorite person, or this person has done this, or we don't want that person. The reason you're continuing to be used this way is because of this attitude of arrogance that must stop. Until we stop being arrogant against ourselves, they are going to continue to step on us. We must unify. We must bring in the experience of yesterday with the vigorous anticipation of youth. We must be able to recreate a coalition of the willing. We must be able to bring all Kenyans together in a manner that will surprise them. We look back in our history and you will find that within our history, there were men and women who stood beyond their time and sacrificed beyond their call of duty, whether it be Kenneth Matiba or Wangari Maathai or Degama Pinto or Tom Mboya or or Robert Ouko. There were so many, and there can be so many others who can join within the current and the energetic in order that what is created is an alternative universe from the universe that is being created by our looters and by our detractors who are captured power in 2022 illegitimately because they are governing by a fraud. What was cast in votes is not what is in government or opposition altogether. It is therefore true to say that the entire government of Kenya, the entire opposition structure, including parliament, senate, they are all illegal, they are all illegitimate and do not have the mandate of the Kenyan people. And therefore, if somebody was to ask me, how are we going to go forward from here? And during the 90s, there was a time we decided not to appeal to the government. We decided to appeal to lawyers. Then Paul Mwite was the chairman of the Law Society. And there was a time all lawyers began to boycott the going to court on any matter, whether it be constitutional, be it corporate law, until certain things were done. We must have a kind of a national boycott of our judiciary system until such a time the IBC is put in place, because without it, without the IBC, all these lamentations that people are talking about, be they an idea of referendum, an idea of recalling MPs, an idea of anything electoral is null and void, can never take off without an independent electoral boundaries commission. And it is possible to call about other institutions that are not in the control of government. That is why when doctors go to the streets and strike, and the hospitals are shut, and when the teachers go to the streets and strike, and the schools are shut, the government, with all its arrogance, with all these things they have put on their one side, are forced to come back and kneel before the people, because that's the language they understand, the language of defiance and the language of saying no. If we can get the lawyers, if we can talk to them, and obviously right now their lawyers are also split, because there are those since the government of national unity who have abandoned us. I still believe that we can get a large number of people to disrupt the entire legal system, because until you disrupt the legal system, you cannot get an IBC. You're not going to get it from parliament. We must find a way in which we hold the government by the neck. We must be able to make sure there is no oxygen in the system of government. And they cannot govern without a legal system. They cannot govern without doctors or teachers. And since those are not the places we need to fight for IBC, mine is to try and see if we can build any kind of consensus around courts and the legal process of boycott as a tool of energizing and bringing, judges and the High Court and Kenyan people into looking at the IBC question. Now, moving from that point, I also want to say that William Ruto's impeachment motion meant very little to me. I really don't give a damn if he removes Gachagua or he does not. But it sent shockwaves to me that this can be the template of extending his rule in parliament. By extending his rule of MPs, he can go and say, look, now we want a 7-year term. We can be able to come back without any inhibition and use the Museveni Kagame playbook of raping the constitution and in making sure that the 2010 constitution becomes the Ruto constitution of 2024, 2025. And therefore, my question is not a question, actually. It's a call of action. The call of action that we must do to ensure that this does not happen is to take advantage, because the enemy of your enemy is my friend. Right now, the country, and yesterday, opinion polls are showing that 76 to 80% of the country is anti the Ruto government, anti the Ruto coalition. In fact, it has swallowed Ruto, it has swallowed ODM, it has swallowed all the enablers of that government. And the public jointly, nearly 80% is anti this government. And that being the case, it means that the public mood, the public displeasure can be used and can be mobilized into a resistance. And that resistance on the streets can aid the resistance in the courts. And because there is despondency, some of the people who are very angry with this government are angry for selfish reasons. But for me, it does not matter why they are angry. What matters is that there is a lot of anger out there. We must be strategic. We must be definite. We must be conniving. We must also act like the thief is acting. You must set a thief to catch a thief. We cannot go there with a Bible and wearing the bishop's cloak when the man is wearing a gun and a machete in his back every night against the Kenyan people. We must redefine ourselves. We must begin to collaborate and bring together even people we never thought were allies. Because unless we do that, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, where we are in the middle of 2024, God forbid where we will be in the middle of 2025, unless we as a people rise up. Finally, on the Adani question, I want to give this undertaking that I think because people have been confused about the two processes in court. One was a judicial review by the LSK, and mine is a constitutional application which seeks to nullify the matter completely. I believe that from the 17th, the High Court will have merged the two matters summoto, and that this matter of the JKIA will be one of the first times we can draw blood from the veins of William Ruto. A very thorough process has been put in place. I'm limited by the rules of the court, so what I may say or not say, but I want to learn for now by saying Kenyans, we are in the most dangerous time we have ever been since the establishment of the Kenyan Republic in 1964.
Thank you so much, Tony, for powerful submission. I'm aligned with everything that you've said, especially where you've said now we need all hands on deck. This movement needs all of us to work together. If you think of working as a separate group or is acting under a separate organization, then you have not properly diagnosed who the enemy is and who we are.
Marge, what's going on?
Doctor, you can't hear me? I don't think Doctor can hear me. Dr. Ari can
continue,
hear me.
let me text him.
Okay. The way Tony has properly tried to shape and make you understand how this government, this corrupt government, cannot be defeated, cannot be beaten by separate. When we work in sectarian parties, we have to unite because we are literally at a very dangerous point in this country with all the tyranny that is creeping in. I'd like to give the microphone to welcome Nelson on the space. He was Armenia. He was a little bit late. Before I give him the microphone, we just want to acknowledge your presence. I'll have two speakers go, and then I'll give the microphone to Nelson. If you hear my alarm go off, know you have exhausted your 3 minutes. We have a heavy request line, and we'll have to get as many speakers as we can to commentate on the state of the nation. So I'll give the microphone to Tom Boyer Jr. Can you hear me? Tom Boyer, are you there? Tom Boyer, we cannot hear me. Samuel Kasuni, Samuel.
Yes, hello, yes, I'm here. You. Are you able to hear me?
Cannot hear me. Samuel,
yes, I'm here.
Yeah, Samuel, hold on. Tom Boyer, go ahead. Tom
is bado uko kwa listener.
Well, let me proceed. I hope you are hearing me. Kindly confirm with 100.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'm speaking. Thank you. I want to. I hope you are hearing me. Kindly confirm with 100. Well, I just want to be very precise. There is one observation I've made so far. And with regards to the comments by Tony Gachaga, we really need to unite, and we really need to craft a strategy that is similar, almost similar to the strategy of our enemy. Because when we are in a ring, we want to fight. The rules are always the same, and it's always a must that you stay on the ring until you win. So what I've always observed with the government is that they have strategists that coin what they have to do, what narrative they have to set in the country, and also they have a system whereby they engage bloggers to keep confusing Kenyans with different narratives. How I wish we can also be such strategic. We also need to get serious bloggers, for example, with an aim of countering and focusing on the bloggers themselves. For example, the government, in a way, managed to identify key leaders or key revolutionaries who are very influential among us. And they decided to share sentiments that divides these key revolutionaries. I suggest that we should be able to focus on also dividing the government bloggers. Let us even consider going for personal and private lives to confuse them. That is just one of the suggestions I want to make. Another thing that is an unpopular opinion is that the only strategy that is going to work for us is the streets. That is what made Ruto for the first time to say, Kenyans, I concede. So the streets is the only thing that is going to help us. Let us just keep organizing on how we can make sure we get back to the streets. Any other thing, focusing on a legal approach that we are going to get salvation through our judicial system, that one I believe is very delusional, because the constitution itself is an instrument of power, and they have strategically used it. Other instruments of power, which is money and the gun, they have it. We only have the people. Let us utilize our strength as much as we can. Otherwise, thank you.
Thank you so much, Tomboya. I'll pass the microphone to Samuel Kasuni. Samuel?
After just a moment before Samuel gets on, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge Clayson Monyela, all the way from South Africa. Thanks for joining, and feel free to pick the mic, or I'll send you the mic if you want to say something that's really welcome. And Dr. Eve from Uganda, and we have also our brothers and sisters who are coming from the continent, just joining in the conversation. Back to you, Afro.
Oh, thank you so much. Welcome again, Clayton. As what is being said, yes, the only language I believe Ruto understands is the language of the streets. We have seen what kind of president and he is. We have seen him begin to kill youths, abduct us, and everyone, especially the generals who understand, and those who have been fighting this for a long time, they understand what the Nyayo era was like. And all the reversals of the democratic gains have started happening slowly. Tyranny always creeps up on you. It is creeping on us slowly. We all know the analogy of how to boil a frog. If you put a frog in hot water, it will quickly jump out. But if you increase it, the temperature slowly, you'll eventually cook it. And that's what's happening in our country. The temperatures are increasing. And all the alarmists, when we have Dr. Miguna, Tony Gachagua'S saying that the temperature is increasing. We are seeing now we are going back into the dark days. We have seen the parliament, all the checks and balances are being neutralized. This is the most defunct parliament we've ever had in the history of the country, where not only is the president looking to bribe them, the MPs want to be bribed. The opposition neutralized. ODM and their MPs are the ones singing praises to Ruto and defending his policies. That is the IBC not functioning. And those people are thinking we're going to have a political solution by forming a political party, and we are going to compete with Ruto on a political contest. We cannot. That is out of that is out of the question. And there are people who still believe that. So the only solution is mass action. And that's why we must keep on injecting, we must keep on letting people know that this is the course of action we have to deal with. Because even he has already started saying that you want to table a parliament bill to increase the term limits to 7 years. Imagine 7 years. Then after 14 years, he'll take over the term. Who says he has to be there for 2 years? So we can see this happening slowly, and that's why we must struggle. We must kill this baby in its infancy before it becomes this demonic idea. Must be killed right now. We must take over as the citizens of this country who love this country. Anyway, I'll give the microphone to Samuel. Samuel, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much, Afrocentric and Marge, for hosting the space. I do agree with you when you talk about we can't use a political process. At the same time, I think we also have to be cautious of the interests of, we might be very emotionally drained that we feel like demonstrations are the best way to remove the current regime. But I also want us, it should also go parallel with another political process, because we have so many people, so many countries which are like, so many countries have a lot of interest in our country and might not be able to sustain the Mandamano way for a long time period of time. Secondly, we are fighting too much on when you look at the media, in the spaces, in the TL, there's a lot of infighting. So I think we need to look for a common ground where we can be able to cool down the temperatures and people just come together for common purpose. And as Kashoka said, the biggest problem we have right now is we have parties that are owned by the individuals, where people can be called together. I know right now, or DM, they are meeting in Mombasa, and whatever Raila will say is what will happen. Same to the other parties. So I don't know which way we'll be able to build parties. Like those of us who have privilege to be in the Western countries, we know that parties are owned by people, and all leaders are contributed from the people. So that is another way we should be running parallel or many events at one time. As we call for Mandamano, civic education, other people should also be concentrating on the political system, so that if all these other fails, we can be able to copy what happened in 2002, where we had a very popular party, the popular party that was able to, Moi could not even be able to rig. That is. So let's look for a way of, also some people should also look for a way of how do we support nurturing a party that belongs to people, so that we take this away power from these parties that are owned by individuals. So that is my contribution. As also, can we have all the people are influential? You may not agree, but you can agree on a certain calendar whereby, like we agree, like next week, we are going to discuss about IBC, so that every platform, every space, every influential blogger, and you have said some of the bloggers we need, even if it's to buy them, we all talk about IBC to put pressure so that we can be able to accelerate the process. Because right now, I understand the reason why IBC is not working is because of some petitions that have been filed by some people, and they are mark timing. So how do we know that those people are not also being used by the government to delay the IBC process? Secondly, if IBC is constituted today and we still have ODM and UDA,
Kindly wind up.
Yeah, what choice will he have? So unless we have a third force, a political system, which we own, I don't see even constituting an IBC way to help us, because we still have the same parties, which we have to choose between a thief and a lesser thief. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Samuel, for that. Marge, you had your hand up?
No, I was just trying to put a signal through that his time is up, but you then came in with the timer. That's perfect. We had queued Nelson next, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Over to you, Nelson. Welcome to the space, and take it away.
Thank you, Marge. I have 3 minutes.
You can take more as one of the invited guests.
Okay, thank you, Marge. Thank you, Afrocentric and Book 10. So today I'm going to be speaking about not only about Adani and JKIA deal, but also about Schiff, because the Adani deal is not just about a transaction over Kenya's largest airport. It's a symbol of how powerful private interest can manipulate public assets for profit. And it's a symbol of state capture that when this government came into power, they were shouting at the top of their voices that they're going to form commissions of inquiry to look into the issue of state capture, but in essence, they were actually trying to remove the other state capture. Like they were trying to remove the people in the Uhuru regime who had captured the state so that they can also capture the state. And this is what we are seeing happening today with Jayesh Saini, with Adil Kawaja. You have seen Adil Kawaja used to be KCB chairman. When he was in KCB, Uhuru harassed him a lot because he was helping Ruto to launder money. And when Ruto became president, he put him in charge of Safaricom so that, they can continue with their state capture. Unhinged, because now there is no Uhuru to try and block them. And you have seen how Adil Kawaja has been instrumental in even the Adani case. They are the legal representatives of Adani in court today through Denton's HHM, Harris, and I've forgotten this law firm from London. So where Adil Kawaja used to be the CEO before he became the chairman of Safaricom. Now he's the partner in this law firm, where Nick Ruto is also a partner, but it's not announced. Nobody knows, but he's not even practiced for a long time. Nick Ruto has practiced for, I think, about 3 years, and already he's been elevated to this level. You can see a lot of conflict of interest and many things happening in the background, that tells you that this is really state capture. And Adil Kawaja's friend Jayesh Saini as well has captured the healthcare sector. And this is what I really want to emphasize today, because Jayesh Saini is also the link to Adani. He is the one who took President Ruto to Modi and also to Adani himself, Gautam Adani. And you must also remember that Raila is not clean in this business, because before the elections, Jayesh Saini took Raila Odinga to Modi. If you go and check the news, you will see Raila Odinga traveled to India before the elections. So normally what this state capture cabal do before the elections, they place their bets on both sides of both sides of the political divide, so that whichever side gets into power, they still hold on to their businesses, because they're businessmen. And for them, politicians are just rent seekers. They're the landlords. They're the ones who control the money. Jayesh Saini for the last 10 years has been controlling the teachers' insurance plus police insurance. And in the last 10 years, he has siphoned 150 billion from TSC. And this case was in Parliament last year in November, but the MPs were paid off and they did not continue with the inquiry. Someone went to court. The case went silent. The case went cold earlier this year in March because the 150 billion that was siphoned from the teachers' insurance means that the teachers do not get help. First of all, Jayesh Saini has over 20 companies in the health sector. He has the most famous companies that are known by people is Life Care, Bliss Healthcare is known, but there are so many other companies that he has, over 20 of them. And if the police or the teachers do not go to these clinics, they are either denied service, or it's a prolonged procedure, or the private clinic will be asked to give like 10, 15, 20% discount. If you refuse, you'll be told to go to Bliss. So these were some of the things that the MPs were asking Jayesh Saini through MAKL, which is the medical administrator. And remember, this MAKL, I call it Makil, so the insurance company that Jayesh owns, illegally siphoned this 150 billion shillings from the TSC. and nobody is saying anything about it. Also, this year in March, when the contract was about to be renewed, so the PS, I've forgotten which ministry, but the PS went to the president and other people as well. They went to Ruto and they told him that this MAKL is not working and the teachers are suffering, the police are suffering. We need to look for a new insurance broker or insurance administrator. And Ruto told them, okay, fine, you guys look for another consortium of insurance brokers, and then we will send out a tendering process. But behind everybody's back, Jayesh Saini's company came back. And up to now, it's Jayesh Saini's company that is still siphoning money from TSC, money from police. And now, in the new shift, they're the ones who are doing administration. So they have a company called Star Discovery Insurance. Star Discovery Insurance is owned by some 4 companies from Hong Kong. And this Star Discovery is a company that is one of the companies Jayesh Saini is owning. So he's a proxy in this company. And this Star Discovery is the one that is going to run SHIF, the insurance claims at SHIF. Apiero is a company that is being fronted, but in the background, it is Jayesh Saini's company that has actually done the system that has failed. This system that is not working is from Jayesh Saini. It's the same exact system that they're using to run the teachers' TSC insurance. And so the 104 billion it's a big scandal. It's a hoax. There is no system that was procured. The only thing they did was to take this system and make it look like it came from India, but it's the same system that is being used by teachers' insurance, same exact, it's a copyright. So this is a huge scandal that should be challenged in court. And Tony, I also welcome you to, if you can, to put a team together and sue these people, because this is totally unacceptable. They cannot sell our assets. They cannot sell our people to go and work in farms and to work as maids in foreign countries. And then they cannot bring Indians to our own country to kill us, because over 10,000 teachers in this insurance fraud have died because either there is a prolonged procedure or someone is in dire need of being admitted to the ICU, and the insurance guys will be like, no, you cannot admit him, just treat as outpatient, and then later this patient dies. It's a horror story, to say the least, and these people need to be in jail. We need to speak up, just as the way we spoke up, because of the finance bill. Kenyans need to speak up. We need to, show our anger to these people, because if we do not do it, either we are going to die, on our knees. We're going to die, and so many people who are hopeless, they will just die. Like the teachers are dying in silence, the police are dying in silence, and now through the shift, now everybody will die in silence. So if we don't speak up, if we don't go to the streets, the same thing that Jayesh has done for the last 10 years with teachers and police is now going to happen to everybody, because shift now is for everybody, and they're going to siphon money from shift for the next 10 years or even more. So Jayesh Saini has a loan of about 7 billion in DTB, and if we refuse for them to take over SHIF, he might go bankrupt, because these people, the way they operate, Jayesh Saini and Adil Kawaja, they are connected to a company in the UAE. This company is called NMC Healthcare. NMC Healthcare almost brought down healthcare in the UAE. You can imagine a country like the UAE, so big, so rich, but there was one Indian called B.R. Shetty who almost brought their healthcare down the entire country. And these people are connected to Jayesh Saini. This guy, Biarshetty, he had to run away to India because he was embroiled in a $4.5 billion scandal. And, this almost brought down the entire hospital because, the money was siphoned out of the UAE. Part of the money was directed to Jayesh Saini's companies as loans, but they never paid back. So this is the same thing, same way they are operating in Kenya. And this 7 billion loan that Jayesh Saini took from DTB, normally they take these loans, and you cannot have you cannot have your assets to be less and your loans to be more. Your assets need to be more, and then your loans need to be below your assets. But the way B.R. Shetty operated, his assets were less than his liabilities, and that's how he became bankrupt. And the same thing is happening in Kenya through Jayesh Saini. His liabilities are more than his assets, meaning if he doesn't get business from the government today, he becomes bankrupt. And that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that he is not going to siphon money from the government the way he's been doing, because the only reason he's not paying, you hear, MTRH is owed, I don't know, 1 billion. I don't know which hospital is owed 100 billion from the insurance claims. The only reason why this money is not being paid to these hospitals is because his liabilities are too many. He has to service his loans, service what? So in return, he will not offer the right service. He will not pay these hospitals, and now it's going to be at a national scale, not only the teachers and the police. It's going to be everybody who's going to suffer because of the unscrupulous business deals and state capture. So we need to stop this, and the only way out is protests. If you look at France, for example, in 2023, the government came up with an extension of the retirement age. So they wanted people to retire at later ages. And the people were like, no, you cannot do this. You haven't consulted the people. And people went to the streets. People protested. The protests were huge. I'm sure you saw them. And the government had to listen to the people. The world over, in Bangladesh, it's the protests that brought down the government. In the US, it's the protests that, hold the democracy. In so many other countries, it's protests that hold the politicians at bay. It's the protests that make the politicians understand that the power is not on them. The power belongs to the people. And it's only through protest, by disrupting every day, by disrupting parliament, disrupting everything that works normally. That's when politicians understand that this power does not belong to us. And this is exactly what we need to do in Kenya. Otherwise, if we stay, let's prepare for 2027. This is exactly what they want. They don't care about 2027. They will steal up to 2027. The only way to stop them is today to go to the streets. So thank you, Afrocentric. You can take it back.
Thank you so much, Nelson, for that in-depth analysis of everything that's happening. I would pass the microphone now to Culture KE, Kenya Media.
Thank you, Afrocentric. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
I had a suggestion, and Nelson did not bring it up, and I'm so happy here, Nelson, that you're here, because I did DM you yesterday. And I hope you don't mind I talk about this, because you did post something yesterday, because you were saying kind of French lawyers are expensive and you needed some assistance. So I just wanted to bring that up. Maybe you're too humble to bring it up, that Nelson has been doing a very, very good job. He does need our assistance. He does need lawyers. And he did post his numbers, guys. Let's changia for him so that he can be able to fight these demons that are against him. The other thing I wanted to ask Miguna, I know he's here, Nelson, Maj, I don't know which country you're in. Why don't we have a Diaspora International Day of Protest? We are actually in countries, because usually I go back and forth from the US to Kenya, 6 months in Kenya, 6 months in the US, because I work remote. Why we are in countries where protests we're not going to be shot down? Why don't we all do a diaspora space and we do an international day of protest